back. You're watching Your World at 10. Now, since the election results in May, the BJP has struggled to find its feet as a credible opposition to the UPA government. The party had pretty much nothing to offer in reaction to Pranab Mukherjee's budget last month, and many political experts see the events of the last week as a road to oblivion. So now, where does the lack of a serious alternative leave Indian policy making? Joining us to discuss that are Rajya Sabha MP Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He's also a well-known businessman, and CNN-IBN's editor-in-chief Rajdeep Sardesai. Well, Rajdeep, thank you very much for joining us on Your World at 10. I'll start with you, Rajiv. My key question in this debate is that with the implosion that we've seen in the BJP, the Humpty Dumpty, the Alice in Blunderland, and everything that's been going on in the last week, does that leave us without a strong, credible opposition, an opposition that has an ideology, and therefore will it hamper policy making?
No, look, Menaka, I don't know if it's leaving us without an opposition. I think it's early days yet. But if it does, that's bad news. Obviously, it's extremely important in today's politics and in the fact that we are facing serious challenges to have a credible opposition, and not just an opposition that just sits out there and is an opposition, but from a point of view of pressuring the government to go out and take the right decisions. So I think it's important to have an opposition. It's important to have an active opposition. It's important to have a constructive opposition. But I think it's early days to start writing off the opposition as it is today.
Rajdeep, would you agree?
Well, no one can write off a political party which has more than 100 MPs, which is in power in 5 state governments. But it's clear that the BJP, Menka, does suffer at the moment from a serious crisis, both in terms of identity and leadership. It's a crisis that's going to play out over the next few months, perhaps even the next 12 months. And I don't see an early resolution to it. It might make the BJP stronger at the end of the day. It might leave it to where it was in the mid-80s as a more marginal party. So I think either way, I think the problem at the moment I would see largely as confined to the BJP itself. What impact it has on the policies of the Congress or the UPA government, Menka, is another question, because the UPA, frankly, has a 5-year mandate. And they really should be looking ahead rather than looking at the opposition disarray and believing that, that virtually gives them a license to do what they want. They need to focus on their core issues rather than worry about the opposition disarray.
All right, but Rajdeep, we are going through a period right now when the government is focused on spending. Now, ideally, a strong opposition would mean a sufficient number of checks and balances on which way that spending is going, where it's directed, how much of it is getting delivered. Unfortunately, the rest of opposition, and please correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be very issue-based kind of opposition. If it's an issue that suits their regional interests, then they will hijack it to make it a headline. But there really isn't any coordinated deliberated thinking upon economic policy making, and therefore my fear that does this mean that there will be no check and balance on the UPA as it continues to spend in this economy and try and help us recover?
I think you make a valid point there, but the fact is this has been going on over the last decade. It's not as if this started with the BJP's implosion. If we've seen in Parliament the kind of issues that have been raised, the failure, for example, to have some kind of a consensus at least on certain basic economic decisions that the government took, both in the last government when it came to legislation and in the last few months. We haven't seen a concerted attempt being made for the government and opposition to work together. I think if the BJP is going to blame the disarray for it, or if the UPA believes that because the opposition is in disarray, doesn't need to consult the opposition, I think both sides have got it wrong. I think I think to believe that policy making is in any way going to be hampered or influenced by what's happening in the opposition, I'm not sure. I think it needs a greater degree of maturity on the part of the government and opposition to focus on economic issues irrespective of what happens with your leadership and your internecine factionalism.
Rajiv, you're in Parliament. What kind of... Yeah, go ahead.
I have a slightly different take on this, Menaka. I'll tell you where I come from. One of the primary roles of Parliament is oversight of the executive and oversight of the government. And if you look at what happened in the last session, budget session, there was for the first time, there was some meeting of minds between the two national parties on a number of issues. And that really sent out good signals on possible consensus on a number of ticklish issues as we go down this legislative, calendar of the next 5 years. The problem with an insecure opposition or an opposition in disarray is it pretty much lays it completely lays bare the fig leaf of any political consensus around the key economic issues. And my concern is not so much about BJP being in disarray or opposition being in disarray. My concern would be more about this emerging green shoots of political consensus around the key economic issues being put to rest because suddenly there is more politics, regardless of whether it's internal politics or whether it's external politics. That I believe is the biggest threat out of this melodrama that's been played out in Delhi in the BJP.
Yeah, Rajiv, different kind of green shoots. Really, does this? How will this hamper the cause of business? Because big business seems to be as close to the Congress, as the BJP's right of centre policy would have put them. So, in that sense, will it really impact governance? Yes, it will impact checks and balances. It may impact to some extent if the opposition is not strong and unified and doesn't ask all the right questions. But business interests, key policies with regard to business, will that get hurt in any fashion, Rajiv?
No, I don't see this as being business being close to Congress and business being close to the BJP. I think the issues, for example, you take the Right to Education Bill. The Right to Education Bill is a bill that requires, that is suggesting private investment in education. Now, that is clearly a policy that finds support within the BJP and in the Congress. And if these two mainstream parties work together, you clearly have a passage of a bill that lays out a new paradigm and a new framework for education in India. Now, that has worked so far because the BJP and the Congress are seemingly cooperating. I don't know if it's tacit, it's unconscious, conscious, whatever. But if the internal politics of a party forces a party to start becoming more political and therefore seemingly less constructive, I think that is as big a threat to what we are going to do in the next 5 years as, let's say, the ability of an opposition party to have oversight over the government.
Rajiv?
I think one important point, Menka, as we know, increasingly governance is shifting from the center to the states. The interesting thing is, after the October elections that will be held now in Maharashtra and in Haryana, you won't have a major election for 15 months virtually till Bihar at the end of 2010. Now that gives a big window to state governments and the center not to resort to populist economic policies with an eye on elections. Often the point that Rajiv makes that it's about politics taking over from good economics, that doesn't happen so much because of internal problems within political parties. It happens more when elections are just round the corner. But now there's a unique period of about 15 months when you won't have a major election, and to that extent I think policy making will be free from the kind of election pressures that sometimes retard it. I think that's going to be a major change, because already we've seen in Maharashtra bizarre decisions being taken. Only today 350 crores being announced for a statue of Shivaji which is to be built only because there are elections in Maharashtra in October. But I think post-October the government will have to focus, state governments as well as center can focus for once on economics and governance rather than an eye on elections at all times.
And Rashdeep, what impact will this implosion in the BJP have in the course of those 2 years of being a little freer for the government to be able to make or take good policy decisions?
I think at the end of the day, I think the point that Rajiv made, I think if the two parties can achieve some level of consensus as they showed during the last 3 months
but
of
Rashdeep,
Parliament.
Can they even do that with the BJP?
Issues.
Can they even do that with the BJP in this kind of disarray?
No, I think they can. I think, I think the BJP's crisis, I still believe, is essentially the BJP's crisis. The Congress obviously is chuckling at the manner in which the BJP is self-destructing. I don't see that affecting, the ability of the opposition and the government to work together. Remember, it's not just the BJP which is the opposition. Interestingly, in the last session of Parliament, it was more the Yadav triumvirate, the Lalu Yadav, the Mulayam Singh Yadav, the Sharad Yadavs, who were acting as an opposition. Even as the BJP showed some measure of responsibility in working with the government on key issues. So, I do believe that what's happening in the BJP at the moment is an issue that the BJP will have to resolve for its own survival and future. I don't see that impinging on either opposition government relations or in the ability of the government to go through with certain tough economic decisions.
Rajiv, last word to you. So 2 questions then. Really, what does this mean over the course of the next 2 years? If the BJP is not able to put its house in order, do you see other opposition parties trying to hijack the agenda, so to speak, and what impact will that have? And are you expecting the next session of Parliament to be hijacked by all the fireworks that Jaswant Singh's book has unleashed?
I really don't know, and I hope not. I think the last session of all the sessions I've attended in Parliament in my little career in Parliament has been the most satisfying and the best session that I've had experience to attend. And I think, like Rajiv says, I think the BJP crisis, let's hope it's more of an internal soul-searching crisis and it doesn't spill over to Parliament, and that's my fond hope. Let's just keep hoping that.
You don't think it opens the window, Raji, for other political parties, other opposition parties, so to speak, to hijack the agenda to some sense and kill that consensus that you actually saw in the last session?
No, I think it's very difficult for anybody to replace the BJP in Parliament because of the way the numbers are. The elections are over. This is the way the status quo is going to be for the next 5 years. And that's not going to change because of any internal squabbles within the BJP. The numbers that the BJP have are going to be the numbers that the BJP have, and they are going to be the largest opposition party. That's not going to change for the next 5 years.
Rajdeep?
Menka, can I just park one last thought with you, is that the possibility does exist that as a result of this implosion, the BJP, the space is opening up for a right-wing conservative party, pro-business, which is openly so. The BJP has always struggled because the RSS has believed in a Swadeshi economic version. So if the BJP is unable to modernize and resolve this implosion, the space does open up for a right-wing pro-business party in this country. If not today, then perhaps in the next 5-10 years, a kind of Swatantra party of the 21st century.
Rajdeep, isn't the Congress pro-business enough? At least big business?
No, what I mean is it's not a question of pro-business or big business. A party which openly stands for market economics, which is able to enunciate it, it could be led. I'm not saying it will be led by a BJP leader. It could be led by a businessman. Who knows? I'm saying the space is opening up in India if the BJP is unable to modernize itself, for such a party to emerge as a potential viable opposition to the Congress in the future. The Congress is a left-of-center party. It may, it's not really a pro-business party in the avatar that Sonia Gandhi has designed itself. NREGA is really in a sense the symbol of this new Congress, not so much what it does for business or for liberalization.
Rajiv, last question and more in jest to you. You want to take on that mantle?
No. I have no delusions of grandeur. I'm happy where I am, and I leave politics to experts like Rajdeep and others.
Jaswant Singh. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
There are enough businessmen who would like to do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Rajiv, Rajdeep. Thank you very much for joining us in Your World at 10.